So, okay, a team we should definitely talk about is obviously the Mad Lions. And I notice every week, it feels like, look, I'll give them credit. They're making it entertaining. I never bloody know where this team's at every single week. Like some weeks I'm like, wow, they've nailed their identity. They're actually going to low-key be the sleeper. And then the next, they just lose a game. And I'm like, that just looked shit. And actually some of these like traditional the traditional laners sometimes look under par. Like, fuck, what am I doing here? And even though I have heard constant hype, like I know there's loads of like fucking analyst hype for Unforgiven that think he's going to be fucking amazing. Like, the thing is, there are elements of Mad Lions can look really good, and there are some that do look like this is a brand new team.
Yeah, I think that's a huge issue with it. But overall, I think that their pieces are fine. Like the two pieces that you're looking at are obviously Unforgiven and Reeker, the two new players. And I feel like Reeker is pretty much where you'd expect him to be if you're saying, hey, you're a rookie.
Is he good enough for them to be a winner though? From what you've seen thus far, obviously, again, we've only seen 4 weeks. But
yeah, right now, definitely not.
Yeah, that's the issue.
I mean, I think that he's somebody who can improve. Like, I think he's shown me good in bad games, but obviously he's way too inconsistent right now for them to be a championship team. But I mean, he doesn't have to be as good.
No, it's like you were saying about that topic last week about if people want more about the Vethio one, last week we had a whole sidebar. It's like the topic there. He's like a summer player potentially. Maybe that's when he hits his peak, right?
Yeah, or even maybe by playoffs, they are able to utilize him in a way where he's good enough where the team can win games versus the top teams. I think that the issue is there's like so much randomness with how they play. Yep. I mean, Armut, you never know what you're going to get out of this guy. This guy is like inting half the game super hard.
I still don't know if he's good, dude. Like, I know that sounds like a hit. I've said it every split, dude. I know that sounds like a hater. Yeah. But the problem is, when I see his bad games, I'm like the hater. I'm like, good. No, that's who he is. Fuck. The guy's got everyone. Look, he's garbage. But then every time I turn around to do that, like he has a good game, fuck, he carried it shit. I couldn't even hate on him because of the Wukong picks. I used to be like, if he's picking Wukong every time, how can he be good? And then he just did win loads of them against good teams. I was like, shit, that is pretty good, actually. Shit.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm on the other side of it where I actually believe he's good. And then every single time that he's bad, I'm like the type of guy that's, come on, Armut, what are you doing? Like, Armut, stop fucking trolling. Like, focus up and win this goddamn game. Like, what are you doing right now? That's how I feel. I'm on the other side where I think he's good. And when he does like really ridiculous shit, when he just runs it down, I'm like, come on, Armut. Like, we know.
Here's the question I have for you. Do you think as a top laner, you can play that super variable style? Because in that sense, by the way, dude, he reminds me a bit of Whipple. I used to think Whipple was actually underrated even by Fnatic fans because they always used to make it sound like he ran it down every game. And I was like, dude, even sometimes when he ran it down, he had like impact on the game, you know? So to me, it's like, but the problem is, I will say, I think it's hard to be really consistent if the top laner just didn't half the games.
Yeah, sure. I think that's a huge issue. But normally around playoffs, he starts becoming better at that. Like he stops inting. He actually becomes one of the best players on the team in playoffs. So I feel like Armut is different. It's not like he's perma flipping where he's taking a bunch of like 50-50 fights and either it works or it doesn't. It just feels like some games he just plays like shit. Like it's just like he's just running it down. Not as so it's more like he's inconsistent. He's like not truly focused at times compared to like his play style being
right.
Like just incorporating a lot of variance into his own playstyle, yes. I would say.
And I will say, because obviously we can attest to this from that Crackdown episode, he is someone who sort of, I mean, this is mad for a rookie to say, but fair play, if you win the championship, you can get away with it. He did just come in and sort of be like, don't really sort of like League as a game or practicing it much, but like, I'll just do it when I have to. So I imagine he's on the old G2 train of like, he's sort of fun it in a bit at the beginning of the split. And then as you say, when the games become more important, I'm sure that's when he focuses in a bit, starts playing more and thinks more about what he's doing, you know?
Well, I think the thing about Armut that I like the most is that he like is honest with himself when he runs down a game. Like he doesn't try to like find excuses or like reasons as to why he ran it down. He's like, yeah, I fucking ran it down because that guy played better than me. And then like next time, if I just play better, then I'll be able to win. Like it's that simple. And I like when people don't overcomplicate those types of things and get really in their own mind about, the matchup, or maybe like I can't win this match. He's like, no, I'm just not going to fucking run it down next time. That's the solution. Yes. If I don't run it down, then I won't die at level 6 to Gwen and completely like lose the whole game right there. We have a Renekton Nidalee draft that's centered around my pick actually being strong throughout the early game. So I think Mad Lions has a couple of issues. I think their drafts are kind of all over the place. Like every now and then they'll do like a draft that you like, but it just feels like they're doing too many different drafts, right? Like
everything seems like it has to be a surprise or a weird fucking pick. There's never like just a standard comp, right?
For me, that's at least how I feel. Like, think about like the early games. They had the Diana Yasuo games. Okay, sure, they play Diana Yasuo. Then Diana's getting banned. Now they have like these random, like this Nidalee Renekton game. Where the fuck did that come from? Like, and Fleet Footwork Nidalee too. It's just too weird, man. Like, we just need to calm down, play the normal stuff. Like, Elyoya is still one of the best junglers. Just put him on, Xin Zhao, Jarvan, like Diana if it's up. Lee Sin, like just put him on those picks and he'll be fine. He doesn't need to, be the mastermind.
I will also say, by the way, one thing I also appreciate about Armut is he actually seems almost like impervious to banter. Because if you remember, when I sort of I did the Thorin approach where basically to see if you can get the spicy answer, you just put the fucking full court press on him. Like, well, look, you might have won the championship, mate, but I thought, fucking Rogue was giving you the business those first few games. He was just sort of like, yeah, I was running it down. You're right. It's like, shit. Because you have to realize that just neutralizes you immediately. If they just agree, it's like, well, shit, I've got nothing then. I'm like, they've done me. You've actually done me on that one. It's a fair play. I'll give you that one.
Yeah, I like his attitude. I like Armut's attitude. I think that's probably the reason why I'm not an Armut hater. I'm more on the side of just believing in him and having confidence. It's like he just normally, and he shows up when it matters. To me, like, yes. So for example, I mean, I thought about, Worlds. Like, I think that at Worlds, he was one of their better players. I think other people were performing a lot worse than expected. I think Humanoid, based on how insane he was in Summer, did not show up at that level.
Yeah.
And like Armut had some fucked up games to play. He had that game where he was playing Gnar versus Kennen, and his jungler just comes and like feeds him like 2 kills in a tie break, and he's still Armut's still relevant throughout the whole game. So I actually think that this is like the type of guy whose mentality compensates for whatever like skill difference he might have, which is kind of like similar to like Adam in a way, where I feel like because that guy is confident and like believes in himself, it doesn't matter that he might not technically be as good. That is a huge advantage when you get into like a series or a lane phase or whatever.
Yeah, actually, one thing I'll say, I've got a couple of points on that. Funny thing you said it there, because I don't want to interrupt you, but basically that's exactly one of the reasons. I don't actually dislike Armut. Like I said, I actually enjoyed his personality, and plus he's got a cool story, like the way he came out of TCL, he's won the championship, etc. Like, here's the thing though, the reason I disliked him was his fans were overrating the fuck out of him those first few splits, especially. It's like Adam, they just tried to make him be, like, essentially, if someone's a good player, but you're just like, no, he's the best, it's like you already are going to sort of make me hope he fucking fails, that it shows that you're just wrong in that scenario. So I think Adam's a good example as well, because another thing I think is an underrated like psychological component of League, and this is something actually I learned, funnily enough, from my old pal Forgiven, which is, especially when you're talking about laning, for example, one of the most underrated concepts goes like this. A lot of players, the way they're not super comfortable on this champion or in their role, like they don't think they're the best, is they wait for the opportunity to seem clear, like I can push in this lane, I can now harass with this champion, I can go for this attack, he is weak. Unless they get like the confidence vibes, they feel like it should all work out, a lot of them, they won't pull the trigger. What I noticed with people, and this is what I learned from Forgiven, is when you notice that in other players, and by the way, at the pro level, there's a lot of guys like this. What you do is you abuse that. You might not even be on the better matchup, but you abuse the fact that if you step forwards and they're not sure they're supposed to, they back off. They let you take the harass. They let you hit them when they hit the minion. Like, that's a real style. Now listen, someone like Forgiven obviously took it too far because he was trying to be like Uzi and fucking master one approach or whatever. But that if you, as you say, we just describe it as confidence because that's what they'll say in interviews. Again, players aren't super articulate, but that's what to me people like Adam were doing. They were taking pictures like that probably shouldn't work, but he would just go for it. And I'm pretty sure the other guy would go like he'd have to die a couple of times and be like, what the fuck? How is he doing this to me? Like, this shouldn't, that thing. It's like Wonderback. This shouldn't work. Like, there's plenty of people have that fucking story, mate. The problem is, this is why the game is more than just your hands. It's also psychological. It's how you're seeing the other point. So what you even think's possible.
Yeah, and it's evidence in their picks, right? Like, they both have a pick that they play when they think it's good,
what?
And they're really, really good on. So you have Wukong for Armut, and you have Darius for Adam. And when they pick those picks in those games, generally it's going to be like a strong performance from them, like because they just know those champions on another level, which a lot of people won't do. A lot of people won't go back to like one of their really good champions because they just feel like, oh, it's not in the meta, it's not actually that good right now. Well, if the other guy knows as much as about the champion as I do, it's really easy to counter, for example. So they get psyched out of being themselves, and neither of those players do it. But I mean, obviously Adam has, we could go to BDS next, but
but I've got a quick side point on that though. Point on that though. There's one thing though about that spins into a draft concept that I hate, dude, which is, when one of the other reasons if you have an off meta pick, it's not in the meta, it's not supposed to win, and crucially, they're not playing it in like Korea and doing amazing shit with the best player. When you do that, the amount of Western coaches whose ego is hurt and they go like this, Dom. Well, the thing is, it shouldn't work. So let him take it. We can deal with it. Mate, we can deal with it is one of the most famous set of last words in League of Legends history. Because in that scenario, in certain metas, if you just literally, even though to everyone else it's a wasted ban, it ain't a wasted ban against them. Like, if it's the right meta, and I can take Darius away from Adam, I do it immediately. That might be one of my first bans out the gate, dude. Because then it's like, right, I'll prove prove that you can do it with something else. I'm not going to do that where it's like, eventually, the joke is he doesn't even play League of Legends. He plays Darius, and then sometimes the game makes him pick other things when it's not available. Like, in that scenario, he's made it a skill matchup. It isn't whatever we think it is from the rest of the team, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's leading into a concept that I'm going to be going over in depth, which is like why teams blunder draft and how the draft actually functions. Because I feel like a lot of people become way too they become way too narrow-minded when it comes to what type of factors are going into a draft at different points. And it's not as simple as like, oh, well, this pick is good here. You have to know who the fuck you're playing with and who you're playing against. Yes. If you have Armut on your team, it doesn't need to be the perfect Wukong game. He's played Wukong in horrible matchups. I mean, we remember what happened in game 5. There was an interview with Mac where he picked Wukong and somebody asked him, like, how's the Wukong versus Karma matchup? Or maybe it was game 3. It was one of these fucking games in finals of spring. Like, how's the matchup? He said, it's completely fucking unplayable. And then,
I love it. I love it, though, dude. I love it. I know. Imagine being his teammate here and that, like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, he's like, oh, no, this is a horrible matchup. Like, I'm taking shit on. But, I'll still be relevant and the game. So just fucking take it. I love when players are willing to just play what they think is going to fucking win. At the end of the day, it's a competition. And League is just not like, if you know how to play your champion better than the enemy, that counts for something. It's not like, they have drafted fucking Exodia. We automatically lose based off like, no, like your play in the game actually fucking matters.
Yes.
And you being a specialist is actually useful in some situations. So, dude, honestly, fuck it. Just bring back some Wukong. If you need some desperate wins for Mad Lions, throw a Wukong game every now and then, let somebody pick Jace, you pick Wukong into it, boom. Enjoy a couple free victories until people start banning it again.
Because that's the thing I just think about, dude. I just imagine being like his teammate. And he says, so it's like you must have that like that meme with the vein on the neck, like, like when there's that kid at that table, like trying not to come.
It was like the Hillsong picture that everyone always memes where it's like, Dylan, we have to go Vayne. And like you see like Hilly just, what the fuck? Like you're actually picking Vayne mid in competitive. Like this is what we're risking our whole season on. I love that. I love that in fucking players, man.
No, another thing I'm with, by the way, because I'll give you a quick side point. I brought it up on shows before, but I'll do it again for the fans who are the newer fans. Right? Everyone now is doing this thing where, like, because he doesn't play the game, so he can't have a bad game and look bad. Doublelift now has become like the fucking, they think he's like the fucking Hokage from like Naruto or something. He's just a wise old man who everything he says is just glittering wisdom. The thing about Doublelift has always been like this. I've known this guy since literally 2012. Here's what happens. He just talks a lot. And there almost seems to be no like censor between his brain and his mouth. The words just flow continually. Every now and then, though, he'll just hit like a stream of like lucidity where he'll say some amazing shit. And you're like,
yeah, like that's deep as fuck. TSM, right? Remember that was
that was pretty good. Listen, that was when I felt like he was coming to the light at that point in time. He was fucking born again. No, because for example, I'm not exaggerating. Back in the day, in 2013 at Worlds, he was the first Western player I actually met who understood the concept. You don't just play what seems like the best global meta, you just play your style to the best you can. He got it back then because what he realized was he thought the European team was going to be way worse, and obviously they were way better. And he was like, fuck, it's because actually they have their style, whereas we're just trying to like copy someone else. He figured that out in 2013. Now listen, he couldn't apply it to his game, he couldn't apply it to TSM. So this is the problem, right? Doublelift also, years later, when he was in TSM, did an infamous, I think it was an interview, where it was either an interview or a talk show, where he basically said, and it's a classic pro player, like stupid thing to say. He goes, because he obviously thinks I'm Doublelift, I played all these years. He goes, I think I just take the nameplates off. At the end of the day, you play against the champions. It's like, mate, that might make sense in solo queue. That would even be good advice. That is the dumbest pro play advice I've ever heard. Because what it implies, Dom, is that I'll make it fair. I'll make it. So let's say he was on Team Liquid and he's playing against TSM. Oh, their mid lane's picking Zilean. I don't know who their mid laner is. Great. We won the matchup, right? We're going to dick on this game. Guess what? That Zilean is going to be very different from the random Zilean that like fucking who he would have played if he was a mid laner. Like in that scenario, mate, like, I'm sorry. I think history is borne out that absolutely there are certain players with certain champions. That is, you do not take the nameplate. It's the opposite. You look at the fucking nameplate. The nameplate actually is more important than the champion.
Yeah. I mean, we saw an example of that recently with EDG in one of their mic checks where they were just talking about like, hey, like based on how the series goes, if you do this with me, even if you lose top, like the whole game is over. And it's like not it's like a jungle invade that JJ calls Flandre to do. That's going to put Flandre behind, but they just know in the moment that based off like external factors, not what's happening right there in the game. There's no way like in that level 1, they just look at both team comps and like, yeah, you know what? An invade will just completely end the game. They know in that circumstance, because it's game 5, in the finals of Worlds and like how the series has gone. JJ just had a monster game. Canyon had a not so good game in a row, like just back to back. You just know that like they're reading the actual situation and it's more than just the champions. So of course you don't want to like disrespect people and play really stupidly because you think they're better than them. You shouldn't like ego on people just because their nameplate says that they're bad. Like if you're laning bot lane, I mean, I'm just going to fucking say, if you're laning bot lane into Jesu, like, and you're like, oh shit, like, you know, he's bad, I'm just going to dick him in lane, and you play like he's just not good, then you could get caught. And that's how you could lose some of those trap games. But in reality, like you need to understand what people's strengths and weaknesses are. And you have to play the player as well as like the champions. It's not just a fucking game of robots playing against each other.
Yes. Also, I'll just say as a quick aside, another thing that's silly about letting people do what they're strong at is they're in their fucking comfort zone. Like, there's another thing. Even if someone's sometimes good on another pick, like he looks like he's equally as good. If I know he's not as comfortable, mate, I'll go there all day long. Let's put him in a scenario where he thinks, "Fuck, I wish I was on this," or "Oh, I could have done this," or what. Yeah, I love when you do that. So anyway. Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.